Hey there, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show, Matt. We have Big Cap, plus we have Kentucky Derby preps all over the place.
That adds up to another big weekend of coverage on HorseCenter, Brian Zipsy.
How good is life is good? We're going to find out Saturday that, among many other things. Watch it all right now here on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the excellent pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian Zipsy. Boy, do we have a show for you this week with three big Derby preps and the Big Cap in California.
That's right, Matt. And you're using my last name today. I hope I'm not in trouble, Matt. Hey, big cards all over the place. But let's start out west in California. We're going to look at the San Felipe and the Big Cap, as you mentioned first. But let's start with the Kentucky Derby Trail, Matt. The San Felipe, a question a lot of people have been asking ever since he debuted in grand style at Del Mar last November is how good his life is good. I think this will be a test Saturday in the San Felipe.
Yeah, that is for sure, Brian. It's a 7-horse field in the San Felipe, but it's a really interesting and quality 7-horse field. Life is good. 2 for 2 at this point, that romping maiden special weight victory, and then that interesting win in the Sham when Medina Spirit came running at the end.
Right, Matt. I think you have it exactly right here because life is good. You know, he looked so good winning that maiden at Del Mar last year as a juvenile, sprinting the son of Into Mischief for trainer Bob Baffert. But then he opened the door for questions in his Sham win, which came early January. So it's been a couple months now, and he's long been one of the top Kentucky Derby contenders. If you look at how he's being bet in the futures wager every time, he is literally the favorite among the individual entries. But in the Sham at a flat mile, he set a pace that wasn't all that taxing with his stablemate Medina Spirit not far behind. And it looked like Life is Good was going to roll again. But about mid-stretch, thought he shortened stride a little bit, maybe lost a little focus. Medina Spirit came on and made it interesting at the end. Now we stretch out to a mile 16th for this grade 2 San Felipe. I also think there's more speed in here. So is Life is Good just super talented and it's going to move forward off that education in the Sham, or is he a vulnerable favorite? And I know I'm one that likes to beat the heavy favorite in here, so I'm going to look to try to beat him, Matt. And maybe the first horse we should be talking about is potential upsetters in the San Felipe is Medina Spirit, also trained by Bob Baffert, and he came back with a good win after that interesting race in the Sham.
Yeah, Brian. So it's not just that interesting race that you mentioned in the Sham. It's the fact that Life is Good has not run since that. But, you know, that's fairly typical of Baffert, giving a lot of time between races to certain of his horses. But Medina Spirit in that came back in the Robert B. Lewis in that really challenging stretch run where it looked like, quite frankly, and the replay's up there, folks, so please note this, it looked like Medina Spirit was going to get beat at 2 different points in the stretch. I watched again, and I still said, wow, they're going to go right by him. But both times, Medina Spirit dug in and got a really gritty win in Robert B. Lewis, and I was very impressed with that. So to me, Medina Spirit has moved on and improved, and we still have the question marks left over from the Sham for Life is Good.
Right, and as a heavy favorite, that spells take a shot to beat him in here to me. And Medina Spirit actually is the one I like very best in here. He's a son of Bertonico, a pretty young sire, but he's a grandson of Giants Causeway. Giants Causeways move on with distance. That doesn't really matter maybe Saturday because the San Felipe is the same distance as he won last time in the Lewis. But he proved tough. I tell you what, to finish the way he did in the Sham after Life is Good had really won the race in mid-stretch. And then the way, like you said, he fought off multiple challenges in the Robert B. Lewis. He also gets Johnny V in the saddle, and he also gets the great one, talented speed to maybe soften Life is Good up a little bit. So I think Medina Spirit might sit a good trip under his new rider Johnny V in third early. I like Medina Spirit to turned the tables on his stablemate. I mentioned the great one, Matt. He's the son of Nyquist, and it's hard to fault his last two races for the speedy son of Nyquist coming from the Doug O'Neill barn.
Yeah, that's for sure, Brian. The great one has interesting past performances in that he finished second in the Los Al Futurity as a maiden still in a nice effort, and then came back with a rousting 14-length victory in a maiden special weight against the field of four. I don't like him on top, but I agree with your assessment, Brian, that he's going to be a pace factor.
Right. And what I said about Life is Good, we really don't know how good Life is Good is yet. We don't know how good the Great One is because he was kind of toiling on turf a little bit. He added blinkers 3 races back. He really put it together the last 2 races. He should have won the Los Al Futurity. He got nailed on the wire after he looked like a winner 50 yards from the wire in that Los Al Futurity by Spielberg. And then there were some talented horses in that little 4-horse field that he won by 14 lengths. That was his first race on the dirt at Santa Anita. So there's a lot to be said for the Great One. But with his speed and with Life is Good speed, it seems to me it would set up for somebody to pick up the pieces, whether it's Medina Spirit close behind in third early, or maybe Roman Centurion, Matt, a son of Empire Maker, who's getting better with every start for trainer Simon Callahan. He probably, you could say, he had his chance to win the Robert B. Lewis and didn't get the job done. But on the other hand, I like the way he's improving. He certainly wants 2 turns. Roman Centurion, if he takes another step forward and gets a solid pace in here, I think he's a threat as well.
Yes, on that, my friend. I don't think it's a knock that he finished second in that blanket finish as a young horse who can certainly improve.
Yeah, and we're looking at him as the 4th or 5th choice in here. So a rallying, improving option from Simon Callahan's barn. Another one we need to mention, Matt, I think there are 5 very talented horses in here. The other one is Dream Shake. And Peter Urton is sending the son of Twirling Candy into the deep end of the pool here, Matt, off of only 1 maiden sprint win about 4 weeks ago. It was at Santa Anita. It was ultra impressive, but that's all he's had.
Yeah, and it's not really just all. He got a big speed figure in that race, and got a lot of attention in that race because that was supposed to be the coming out party for the Baffert runner Bezos, who ended up not being a factor, and Dream Shake ran a big one. So I don't know how good is Dream Shake. We're certainly going to get an idea about that coming back and running in a field like this.
Yeah. After that maiden win, you at least have to think about him. But I think this is an awfully tough spot for a second race. As you know, folks, I like Medina Spirit best. I think this sets up well for him. I really like his toughness. And I think Life is Good is going to be a heavy favorite in here. So I'm going to go with the other Baffert, Medina Spirit, as my top pick. I want to get Roman Centurion into either second or third as well, Matt. That'll be my play in the San Felipe. How about you?
Brian, I know the HorseCenter fans think that I never pick a Bob Baffert horse, but I'm going to go against that this time, and I'm going with Medina Spirit also to upset Life is Good. Medina Spirit, trained by Bob Baffert.
So we are kind of anti-Baffert. We're just picking another horse to beat him, and he happens to be trained by Bob Baffert. All right, I'm joking, but we want to beat the heavy favorite in the San Felipe. How about the big cat, Matt? We got another heavy favorite. And this is a horse who I think just has oodles of talent and could do anything, literally anything this year, including go through the season undefeated, win the Breeders' Cup Classic at the end of the season. That's how high I am on Maxfield. But he's had issues. He's had injuries. He's only had 5 starts now early in his 4-year-old career. But I certainly have liked what I've seen from his races at Fairgrounds this winter. Now he goes to California. Now he goes at a 1.25 miles. But on the other hand, it looks like he hasn't picked a super tough race to make a grade 1.25 mile debut.
Yeah, and Brian, I'm a big fan of Maxfield also. I voted him on top in the top thoroughbred poll at this point. But let's face it, Brian, he's going to be a big favorite in this race. And it is a bit of a test in that he's going all the way across the country. He is putting together 2 races in a normal time period. I don't think that's a knock, Brian. I think that's a good thing. he did that early in his career, between his maiden win and his second start. But anytime you go all the way across country, that's something that you have to overcome. And as big a fan as I am of Maxfield, at a really short price, I'm going to do what we did in the San Felipe. I'm going to try and beat the big favorite.
Okay. Well, I thought the big favorite in the San Felipe was vulnerable. I'm not as interested in trying to beat Maxfield in here. Yes, he carries a high weight of 124 pounds. He's never been farther than a mile and 16th. But I think there's speed in here, and they're mediocre horses in here. Pardon all the other horses he has to beat. There's some decent horses, but I think Maxfield is one of the best in the country, and I've wanted to see him stretch out for a while. He's never been more than a mile and 16th. He's never been to California, but still, I just don't like the chances of anybody beating him. I think this is another coming out party, if you will, for Maxfield, and I fully expect him to stretch his record to 6 for 6. If he does lose, Matt, the first one we probably should talk about is Express Train. He's trained by John Shirreffs, and he looks to be getting good. He's the son of Union Rags, who missed a full year into his 3-year-old season last year, but he's getting better and better. He comes off a very nice win last time in the San Pasquale.
Yeah, Brian. I agree with that. Express Train, and Express Train is going to be my my lukewarm top pick in here. Although, like I said, I really do believe that Maxfield is a special horse. But if Express Train is going to beat Maxfield, he is going to have to be, as you said before, being a horse that is at his best now and is getting better, because he hasn't put together 2 wins in a row, big wins in a row yet, but he looked pretty good winning the San Pasquale last time.
He did, and he's a horse on the rise out in the West Coast, but I just don't trust the West Coast form of most of these. I think they're more grade 2, grade 3 horses, if you will, and when you get those type of horses going a mile and a quarter, I don't want them. I don't want them here at a mile and a quarter. I'm going to look for some odds. So I'm going to be using Maxfield, but I'll look for some odds. So I'm not on Express Train at a mile and a quarter because I know he'll be a heavy second choice. You got Independence Hall coming off a pretty good third in the Pegasus. You got Kiss Today Goodbye, who won 2 starts back in the San Antonio. Tis a Magician is a consistent speed horse. Coastal Defense gets blinkers on. But the horse I want to try to get in there, and it's really, really because of a mile and a quarter. That distance kind of sets this race apart from other races, or at least races that have led up to this. And that horse is Idol. He's a son of Curlin out of an AVP Indy mare. I know he didn't get the job done when second in the San Antonio and third in the San Pasquale, but I think the difference maker for him this time will be a mile and a quarter. So if anybody gives Maxfield a real good race in here, I'm hoping it's Idol, and maybe this time Idol gets some odds, Matt.
Yeah, Brian, and like you said, for me, he was disappointing in his last 2 starts. But as you said, this West Coast bunch of older horses, is inconsistent at best, and that mile and a quarter is the great equalizer. And going that distance, Idol could just be the one that handles the extra 1/8 of a mile.
Yeah, well, he gets Joel Rosario for the first time, and I think of all the horses in the race, he's the one that I'm most certain will like a mile and a quarter. Even when he was disappointing last time at third in the San Pasquale, he was finishing up that race well. I think a mile and a quarter will be up his bag. So Maxfield and Idol for me, Matt. How about you?
Express Train and Maxfield for me.
All right, so Matt's reversing the favorites. I'm going to try to get a little bit of odds in the big cap with Idol underneath Maxfield. Hey, Matt, let's switch coasts real quick. We go from Santa Anita, folks, to Aqueduct. Aqueduct's got a nice card, as does Tampa Bay Downs, which we'll talk about a little bit here too. But a nice card for Gotham Day at Aqueduct. And Matt, we're switching back to a 1-turn mile on the Kentucky Derby Trail here. But there are some very interesting horses. You want to start with Highly Motivated out of the Chad Brown barn?
We can certainly do that. And the Gotham offers, a unique opportunity at this point in the Derby Trail when we're up to the 50-point winning you're in essentially Kentucky Derby prep races with the 1-turn mile. It's an opportunity for a bunch of horses to get to what they view as their ideal distance. And I think that's what's happening in here. But you highly motivated. Chad Brown brings him back for his debut as a 3-year-old. Last year, we saw highly motivated break his maiden at Belmont Park and then move to Keeneland, where he rallied from off the pace on a Keeneland track that was probably playing a little bit better to horses on the front when he was a very nice winner in the Nyquist.
Yeah, absolutely. That Nyquist performance was very good when last he saw him on the Breeders' Cup undercard, which is moving now to 4 months out, I guess. But I'm not really worried about him being ready. Chad Brown has his horses ready. I just think this is a really good setup. Highly motivated was a talented 2-year-old for sure, and I expect him to be a talented 3-year-old. I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse, but the good thing for him in the Gotham is he doesn't need to be. This is how horses used to do it on the Kentucky Derby Trail, that they'd begin in 1-turn races and work their way up, albeit with more races under their belt and before the Kentucky Derby as well. But I just feel like this is a good spot for highly motivated because there's a bunch of speed in here. It's a 1-turn mile. He can do the things he did in his second race winning at Belmont and then in that impressive performance in the Nyquist. I think he's the horse to beat, Matt, making his return. But I'll tell you what, hard to dismiss Freedom Fighter, that familiar trainer again. Bob Baffert has this son of violence coming back for his second start after a layoff. A good winner, a game winner of his debut way back last summer at Del Mar. He was game again when he was second recently in the San Vicente versus a very highly regarded concert tour. Freedom Fire makes the trip east. 1 mile should be up his alley, and I wonder if he just is a more classy horse than anybody else in this race.
Well, we'll find that out. And it certainly is an indication of the number of quality 3-year-olds that Baffert has this year, that he can look for a spot to separate a horse like Freedom Fighter, not on the list of Baffert's top 3-year-olds. I don't know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe on that list. But I think this is an ideal spot for Freedom Fighter, the 1-turn, the mile. And hey, Baffert has had a lot of success shipping horses to New York, where he stables them in the barn of John Terranova, and had success. But like you said, Brian, he likes to race on the pace, but he's going to find a lot of company there. And one of the other major horses, the top 3 in this race, Capo Cane, will be one of them, who cuts back to the 1-turn mile, where he was a winner at Aqueduct in the Jerome.
Well, I agree with what you said about Freedom Fighter up until a point, but I guess you went there anyway, in that this is probably a perfect spot for Freedom Fighter. Still getting 1 turn in his 3rd race, 2nd race off the layoff. Clearly, to me, if any of these horses become Grade 1 type of horses, highly motivated and Freedom Fighter are the 2, and I think those are 2 that are going to be fighting for the favorite spot here in the Gotham. The one separator for me being all the speed. I think Freedom Fighter will have some work early in a 1-turn mile, and I think that sets it up a little bit for highly motivated. But Freedom Fighter looks like a very nice horse, so I'm pretty interested to see highly motivated in Freedom Fighter. Hopefully they're as good as I think, and we get a very interesting Gotham. You mentioned Capo Cane. Yeah. You remember I liked him a little bit as a pseudo long shot in the Jerome, and then I got off him in the 9 furlong Withers, where he faded a little bit. Didn't run a bad race. Nice horse, this on a street sense. But yeah, with other speed in here, I wonder the cutback in distance to a mile would seem good for him, but all this other speed makes me worry that this is another tough spot for Capo Cane. Another one I want to mention, another one with speed, Matt, is Wipe the Slate, another son of Nyquist. He faded in the Lewis, but that Lewis came up very tough, that Robert B. Lewis. Before that, he had run second to Life is Good in their debut races. And then he won a very fast, nice maiden win in between. So I wouldn't be surprised if Wipe the Slate comes back with a much better performance on Saturday in the Gotham, also coming from the West Coast like Freedom Fighter. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Wipe the Slate just adds to that early pace, which makes me like Highly Motivated best.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. I like Highly Motivated a lot in here. And as you said, I am also not concerned about the layoff because nobody is better at bringing horses back at 100% off a long layoff than Chad Brown. It figures to be a hot pace in the race. And I just want to throw out one other horse as a possible late runner who could be a factor in the finish and maybe get second or third, and that is Crowded Trade, who was a debut winner for Chad Brown with a big run from off the pace. Yes, that's a big step up from a maiden special weight, but it is Chad Brown, and he's going to get an ideal setup also. Maybe Chad Brown at a decent price could get third in the trifecta.
Yeah, I always worry about when I looked at this race, I always worried about how much they bet Chad Brown's, and I could see him easily being the third choice in here, unfortunately. But I agree with what you said, and he's an interesting other option. I just think the top two are better, Highly Motivated Freedom Fighter, but I like Highly Motivated best in Saturday's Gotham at Aqueduct. Matt, finally we go down south for the Tampa Bay Derby. And maybe this is third on my list of interest for the Kentucky Derby, but maybe I'll be proven wrong because I really did like what I saw from Candyman Rocket, the son of Candy Ride, trained by Bill Mott. So there's good breeding, good connections there. Came off a big maiden score sprinting to, I thought, run a very good race in the Sam F. Davis, where he was a little wide, stalking, pretty fast pace the whole way. Now he'll probably have to do a similar type of job because I think there's speed in here as well in the Tampa Bay Derby.
Yeah, I think so, Brian. And yes, his stretching out victory in the Sam F. Davis was absolutely noteworthy and an impressive performance. But, there's a field of 12 coming back in Tampa Bay Derby. Maybe it's the $400,000 purse that's attracting them, but he certainly isn't scaring anybody away. And to me, watching the replay, it looked like he was getting a little bit tired at the end of the race. And I think there might be some horses coming from off the pace who could be dangerous.
Yeah, I hate to be a chalk-eating weasel on this show, but I really do like Candyman Rocket best. I thought it was a dynamic performance coming out of a short sprint to do what he did at a mile and 16th. Again, he was a little wide, chased a fast pace, took over the race, and I never thought they were going to beat him late. So I like the Sam F. Davis, and I think he should only move forward second time at a distance for trainer Bill Mott. There are some other interesting horses there. Maybe the first one is Hidden Stash, Matt. Hidden Stash, a son of Constitution. We're going to talk about a couple Constitutions in here. But hey, can a brother get Vicky Oliver on the Kentucky Derby Trail, Matt? That would be fun to see Vicky Oliver on the Kentucky Derby Trail. And I'll tell you what, from what I saw in the Sam F. Davis, she's got a shot here with Hidden Stash. You'll remember third and fourth lifetime starts last year in Kentucky. He won pretty nicely, rallying to win a maiden and allowance. And then in his fifth start, he was the one really running late, I thought best in the Sam F. Davis. Perhaps Hidden Stash can take another move forward, and perhaps with a good pace, Hidden Stash is the one that can beat Candyman Rocket.
Yes, Brian, and I liked Hidden Stash in the Sam F. Davis, and I liked the way he ran in this race. I liked the price that we got on Hidden Stash better than what we're going to get this time, most likely in the Tampa Derby. But we're kind of switching places here, Brian Zipsy, a little bit. I'm going to try and beat the likely favorite Candyman Rocket, and Hidden Stash is going to be my horse.
Nothing wrong with that pick, Matt. We also should talk about Todd Pletcher, because when Todd Pletcher comes to Tampa Bay for races like the Tampa Bay Derby, he's always very dangerous. He's won this race a few times, and he's got two entered on Saturday in this 12-horse field. And Promise Keeper was really no match for Candyman Rocket, but that was his debut. He came right back, stretched out a little bit. The son of Constitution again. Was a very nice maiden winner at Gulfstream Park last time. So I think Promise Keeper is probably the more interesting of the two from Todd Pletcher.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he gets the services of Luis Saez, and it's hard to get Saez away from Gulfstream Park, where he can win races in big chunks at a time at Gulfstream. But he's going to make the trip. And again, like I said before, maybe it's the $400,000 purse, but Saez isn't coming if he didn't think he had a reasonable shot on Promise Keeper.
Right. On form, I like Candyman Rocket a little bit better than Promise Keeper, but Promise Keeper has a similar running style. Saez and Pletcher certainly dangerous. I could see them being the second choice over Hidden Stashing here, Matt. Maybe Mark Casse gets bet. He's got a horse who's undefeated, 2 for 2 up in Canada. They were both sprinting. One was the Stakes, but they both came on a synthetic surface up there. So I wonder about his first dirt race. Looks like he's picked a pretty tough one. Also, I mentioned Helium. The horse's name is Helium because you told me that you would do your impersonation of Matt Schiffman on Helium. What does that voice sound like?
I don't know. I thought maybe you were going to talk about make a reference about Helium being being gas, and
full of hot air. No, I just wanted to hear the squeaky Matt Schiff. Never mind. I won't go. He's a possibility, as is perhaps Boca Boy, Matt. Boca Boy went into Sam F. Davis off a layoff and sired by a Florida sires. He was running in those Florida Stakes 2-year-olds last year, did well. And I thought he did well in the Tampa Bay Derby because he hung around pretty well, but he adds speed for sure in this Tampa Bay Derby.
Yeah, and Safi Joseph has got Super Strong in the race, a horse that I guess is very hard to evaluate. Was a debut winner of a Grade 1 race at Camarero Park. So who knows what that means, but it's Safi Joseph, and he can be dangerous.
Yeah. There's some interesting horses in here, and we have a horse who looks a lot like King Guillermo did last year when he won this race at huge odds, coming from the same barn and coming from turf as well. So still, looking at it, it's hard for me to pick against Candyman Rocket. I recognize Hidden Stash and Promise Keeper as the two most dangerous opponents.
Yeah, Brian, and like I said, I'm going to go with Hidden Stash over Candyman Rocket.
Good for you. Good for perhaps Vicky Oliver moving forward on this Kentucky Derby Trail. Hey, folks, that's our show. We real fast, we went through the San Felipe with Life is Good, the Big Cat with Maxfield. Interesting meeting in the Gotham, the Tampa Bay Derby. Matt, can I get a parting shot from you, my friend?
You absolutely can get a parting shot, Brian, and it's one that I'll say with a little bit of sadness and a lot of gratitude for our producer, Brett Workman, whose enterprises outside of racing are have him really, really busy right now. So Brett is going to be stepping away from producing HorseCenter, and he's our friend and done a great job. So we want to thank him for everything he's done. I have a feeling Brett will be back every once in a while, though.
Well said, Matt, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Brett Workman. We look forward to our new producer, Tony Bada Bing. Matt, he's going to bring some a little bit of craziness to the show, which I think we need. I also want to thank Candace Curtis for making these graphics every week. Our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there, Matt. Thank you to them. I also want to thank their fans as we make this transition to a new producer. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you to all the new fans who watch us every week. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, that little red button. Please do so for us. It helps us out a whole lot. Next week, we're right back here again, Matt. We're talking Kentucky Derby Trail and more on HorseCenter. Folks, we'll see you then.